The BYU football program boasts the best backfield tandem in the entirety of the Big 12 Conference this fall, in my personal opinion. And while LJ Martin might not be participating fully in spring camp, it's only right for Bear Bachmire to take the next step this month.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, 14-year credentialed media member at BYU, your resident expert and insiders, your host here on this show. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And more importantly, thank you for making all of us folks over at Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Coming up on today's show, we're going to dig into BYU and Bear Bachmire and why I believe this month is absolutely critical for his future as BYU starting quarterback and why I believe he'll succeed in that endeavor. We'll get into that. Then we'll catch up with BYU offensive line coach TJ Woods. He's revamping the offensive front this offseason due to guys graduating and adding new guys via the portal. How does that all work out? Well, he'll explain. And then we'll finish up today's show on the basketball front. The BYU women's basketball team faces off against the University of Utah today in Kansas City. And should BYU win, could they have punched their ticket to March Madness? We'll get into all of that ahead on today's show. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. For that same drive into every single detail, wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's always more to you. All right, so BYU football is continuing on with spring ball, and they will have day 4 of practices tomorrow. And I believe that this month, the 15 practices that are allotted to BYU are going to be absolutely critical for Bear Bachmire to avoid that dreaded sophomore slump. And I'm not by any means going to buy into that he will have a sophomore slump, but I'll just add this. I believe he's actually going to take a leap because remember, when he arrived at BYU last year, it was in mid-June. Summer term had just begun. He had essentially 4.5, maybe 5 weeks to get up to speed on the playbook, really kind of dive into it, and then had 2 at the most, maybe 3 weeks at the very, very most to win the starting quarterback job. And all he did was go out there and put together an incredible season, leading BYU to a 12-2 record, had a grand total of over 3,500 yards as a true freshman quarterback. And the future at that point looked extremely bright, and I am as bullish as anybody that with a full offseason, that includes winter conditioning that just concluded, this month of 15 practices in spring ball, and then summer workouts, the upcoming training camp in July and August, and ultimately how the season plays out this fall, I believe that Bear Bachmire's best days of football are ahead of him, and they've been pretty incredible already. So this spring is a great time for him to step forward and really show what he's capable of. And even though his backfield running mate, LJ Martin, who is coming off offseason shoulder surgery, will not participate fully, if at all, in spring ball, and quite frankly, he doesn't need to. LJ knows everything he needs to know about this offense, it feels like, at this point. He doesn't need the physical reps, as it were, more mental than anything else. But that tandem is going to lead BYU, in my opinion, to glory. And the glory that they hope to accomplish this year is A, hopefully a Big 12 championship, and B, it's more importantly, a college football playoff berth. That's what they're chasing. They have been knocking on the door of playing for a national title the past 2 seasons. They have been essentially the first or the second team out the last 2 years while compiling a 23-4 record. And I'll reiterate, while Bear Bachmire has a full offseason to deal with here, I truly believe that he is set up to just fly high this fall, so long as he takes advantage of the opportunity he's got here. I will add this. I'm going to throw this up, and you guys can watch this as we're talking about this, but this is video courtesy of BYU football of spring practices to this point. If you notice, if you're watching this on YouTube and if you're listening to the audio format, I'll just say this. Bear has shed what I would lovingly call the puppy fat this offseason. He looks trim. He looks more cut. He just looks more in shape. And it's not he was in bad shape last year. Come on. He played 14 games as a true freshman, and outside of having a bad ankle, the final stanza of the season, he was nothing short of remarkably durable for an 18, 19-year-old kid. And I really do think that the way he's transformed his body and what I have seen, what you're seeing in these highlights, is this is a kid who understands that he has got a very, very bright future in front of him. And he's intent on showing exactly what he's capable of this fall. And I, for one, I'm here for it. I hope he succeeds. I hope he goes out there and absolutely owns the moment. And yes, while the wide receiver core and the tight end unit is undergoing a little bit of a revamp, I believe that his ability to elevate the play of the guys around him is only going to be enhanced because he has more time in the system. He's able, as Aaron Roderick said, to dive in at a deeper level in understanding this offense, the nuances, and obviously talk with his coaches about what he wants to see, what he would like them to implement, and what plays he feels most comfortable with. So there is a big opportunity staring Bear and BYU football by extension right out there in front of them. And so long as he seizes the opportunity, I think any fears of a so-called sophomore slump shouldn't be there. I believe that he is poised to take the next leap. Can he push it to 4,000 total yards? Can he push it to where he is truly the field general that BYU hopes that he can become? And can he, obviously, this sophomore season, he could very much pop on to the NFL radar. I know that he has to play a whole nother year before he's ultimately eligible for the NFL draft. But your sophomore year, if you are as good as I think that Bear Bachmire can be, guess what? The Mel Kipers, the Chris Trapasos, like the Dane Bruglers out there who cover the NFL draft for a living, guys that I enjoy reading every single day because I'm a bit of a draft nick myself. They're going to take note of this young man if they haven't already. And so long as he goes out there and puts the type of numbers I believe he's capable of, and obviously has a guy like LJ to help shoulder the load alongside him, because should LJ have a similar type season that he had this past year, he's ultimately going to leave BYU as the most decorated running back in BYU football history. That's why I believe this tandem, bar none, and it's nothing against anybody else out there, Texas Tech, Utah, anybody else in the Big 12 Conference. Argue with the wall if you think that this tandem is not the best tandem of quarterback and running back in the Big 12 Conference, because it's without a doubt, in my opinion, just that. And that is why I believe this BYU football program, they are poised yet again to chase a Big 12 title, to chase that college football playoff berth, and fingers crossed they break through and ultimately realize that dream, because they have been chasing it for 3 years now in the Big 12 Conference, and really the last 2 have had that opportunity to, in theory, live that dream. And maybe this year be the year that they break through, show exactly what they're capable of, knock off the likes of a Notre Dame along the way potentially, and ultimately break through and play for a natty. I think that's what we're all waiting for. And I, for one, would love to cover that, because it's been pretty darn fun the past 2 years, but it can go to a whole nother level in terms of that fun, like, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the levels that it could reach. It could be absolutely elite this fall for the BYU football program. All right, coming up next, we are going to talk about a unit that, well, if BYU football wants to soar this fall, well, they have to be that tip of the spear, as former BYU offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes called them once upon a time. And the guy that's charged with leading them, well, he explains exactly what he's doing to make sure that they are just that. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Now, Mazda has what they call, they're moving the game forward. For those who show there's just more to the score than what's on the screen. And obviously, I want to highlight what the BYU women's basketball team is doing right now. They have now won 4 straight games. They are on the periphery, the bubble, as it were, of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. And should they break through against the University of Utah later on today, there's a decent chance they can find themselves on the right side of the bubble if they keep handling their business. And that's obviously a big shout out to what Lee Camard and obviously his team have done to this point. These remind us of what it takes to really raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and that I never quit attitude. We, speaking of Mazda, put that same passion into every model. Highlights make the real. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda, because as always, there's more to you. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, Game Time is here for you guys in terms of getting you to the tickets that you want to go to. And obviously, this time of year, it's college basketball. Buzzer beaters, bracket busters, those unforgettable moments that everybody's talking about the next day. Being there live or something like that, well, that's bucket list stuff. The hard part is actually getting those tickets sometimes. Long queues, prices jumping around, and surprise fees at checkout. The Game Time app is giving you, the fan, the advantage with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in literally just a few taps. It's incredibly simple to use. The Game Time Guarantee means 100% legitimate tickets delivered on time and at the best price. And the best part is that fees are included right up front. What you see is what you pay, period. End of story. Zone deals help you pick the section and save you more while Game Time selects the actual seats in that zone. I will be able to follow the teams in the app. If you kind of want to set a price point of what you're looking for, well, they give you alerts when new deals drop. No stress, no guesswork, just a smooth experience from start to finish. That's exactly what you want during this busy part of March Madness. Take the guesswork out of buying your tickets and do it with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and redeem the promo code Locked On for $20 off your first ticketing purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeem the promo code Locked On for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Thank you for being here on Locked On Cougars. If you are a true everydayer supporting this podcast, join the Locked On Cougars Everydayer Club. Get access to audio ad-free episodes, Locked On merch, our members-only Discord server, and a whole lot of other features. One-on-one texting access. It's all available to you by going to lockedoncougars.supercast.com. That's lockedoncougars.supercast.com, or click the link in the show notes below. All right. So BYU football, as we've talked about, aims to chase a national title this year. Now, the offensive line is ultimately going to, I think, help determine in large part the success or failure of this season. If they can protect a guy like Bachmire, allow him to do what he does as a quarterback, well, BYU is going to be set up to do a lot of special things this fall. And also, if they can open up the holes like they have done the last year plus for LJ Martin, well, he could go on to have a record-breaking season for the BYU football program. And I think all of us watching what happened, in particular, the two losses to Texas Tech, saw an offensive line that it struggled. And there's just zero doubt about that. And they were unable to block Texas Tech's elite pass rush. And it's nothing against BYU because quite literally, I don't think anybody else could do that. And I look at it as a challenge that TJ Woods and the BYU offensive line are taking on headlong. They have brought in 3 transfer portal additions in Paki Finau, Junior Sia, and Zach Yamauchi, and they're going to obviously integrate those guys alongside returning stalwarts like Bruce Mitchell, Andrew Gentry, Kyle Safarcho, Sonny Makassini, and I think that the track record of what TJ Woods has done so far at BYU is he will find the best combination of guys. There's just zero doubt in my mind that he will find a unit. And last year it ended up being a 7 or 8 man unit. It was actually 7 men in particular. Every so often they'd mix in an 8th, and it worked phenomenally well. And I'll be honest, I was one of those guys who said, hey, we're going to settle on a 5-man unit. And they were like, no, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And I think by all accounts, it went pretty darn effective because you win 12 games. Who's going to argue with that? But there are guys leaving the program. Obviously, Waylon Lapuaho and Isaiah Jota graduated. They're off to chase their NFL fortunes. And now TJ Woods is having to revamp this offensive front. So what does he plan to do? And how does he plan to use this spring period to integrate, as I said, the transfer portal guys, some early enrollees, obviously a bevy of returners led by all Big 12 honoree Bruce Mitchell? Well, I had a chance to catch up with Coach Woods earlier this week to talk about that and a whole lot more. So without further ado, here's TJ Woods, BYU offensive line coach.
Springtime can be an interesting period because you have guys coming in via the transfer portal, guys who are early enrollees. We also have the holdover guys. How do you go about integrating that whole group together as an offensive line coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough. The hardest part about it is the reps. You know, it's you bring guys in from the transfer portal, and you want to give them an opportunity to showcase their skill set and what they can do and what they've picked up so far with our offense. But then, you know, we also have a lot of guys that are developing in our program that we're very excited about. So right now they're making my job hard. It's hard to decide who's in there, and that's a good thing. It means we got a relatively healthy room at this point in time.
I want to start with some of your guys' holdovers. Bruce Mitchell, obviously, and his transformation from going from a former defensive lineman to an all Big 12 guy is pretty remarkable. How much better do you think he really can be?
Well, I mean, there's always improvement. You know, I think for him, last year was more, you know, we talked a lot about this, but just him learning the position, you know, the techniques and the fundamentals of the position. The first year it was just assignment football, and he was basically playing on athletic ability. This past year he was able to kind of put some technique behind that and some fundamentals, and I think you saw you know, the type of player he can be being first team all conference. You know, I think there's still a lot of room for improvement with Bruce, just like there is everybody else on the O-line. I think for him, the next step for him is just taking the next step with understanding football and understanding all three levels of the defense and some of those type of things we're working on him with. And the hardest part about O-line, the best part about O-line is experience is king, right?
Yeah.
And the longer you play the position, the better you are, regardless of your talent, to be honest. And so I really look for Bruce to take the next step there this season.
Kyle Safarchuk, I thought was a pleasant surprise last year coming from Southern Utah. What has he shown so far? I know it's early on, but what have you seen from him?
Kyle's physical, and he plays with a motor. Nobody's going to out-hustle Kyle or work harder than Kyle. He's kind of the workhorse of the group, and did some tremendous things for us last year. Year one in the system, it's kind of a blend, right? And it's like that now with the transfer portal a little bit, where you have to blend these guys' skills and some of their techniques too, what they've learned at other places that work for them, the reason why we like them and why we're recruiting them. I think it's a blend of trying to utilize their techniques that they're comfortable with, because they'll play confident when they're doing stuff that they're comfortable with, but then also using our stuff. So I look for Kyle to take huge strides this year, now that he'll be a little bit more comfortable, has more repetition in what we're trying to get done.
I want to ask about the three transfer portal guys, Paki Fina, Junior Sia, and obviously Zach Yamauchi. You talk about guys who have things you saw on film. Like, okay, that's attractive to us. Was that you saw things from each one of them that you wanted to bring here? What was the impetus to bring all three in?
Well, first of all, you're looking for traits on film, and that's what's nice about the transfer portal is we can watch them playing against Power 5 opponents, Power 4 opponents, and so all three of them have traits that we like. But really, the next step is there's a lot of good players. There's a lot of people with traits. There's a lot of guys we think we can develop and help improve. The next step is you look for the character of the athlete, and all three of those guys are great fits. They're all culture guys. They've been well coached in high school, and now they're obviously played well at their college, their respective colleges, and they're great fits for BYU. And we think they make BYU better, and hopefully BYU makes them better too.
Do you have a delineation on which guys will play outside versus inside of them, or is it still TBD?
A lot of that's to be determined.
Okay.
Right now, just being honest, it's more about just trying to see what they can do. How well they can pick up our offense. We do a lot. We run a lot of different stuff on offense. It's a pro style offense, so Rod's offense is simple, but it's complex in the same breath. And so I think that's the first step, but then also how they adapt to the techniques that we're asking them to use and those type of things. And really that's the way I look at spring. Spring is a little bit musical chairs. Like we don't, nobody. I tell the guys every day, nobody's got their job. Competition makes everybody better, and we're out here just trying to sharpen our sword and refine our technique. And then fall camp comes. That's when we start really trying to. Right now it's in pencil, it's etched in pencil. In fall it's going to be in pen or Sharpie, hopefully, by the time it's all done.
Yeah, you can erase it now,
But that's when you start building chemistry and all that stuff.
I've been talking with Jeff Grimes in the past. He always talked about spring as a time to cross-train guys, try a different positions. You really get a feel for that. Is that kind of what you're alluding to there?
Absolutely, yeah. And we talked about traits earlier. I like guys that can swing. I think there's value there. Austin Leusa is an example of that. To be honest, Gentry was that way too. He can play inside too. He's a physical guy. We feel Pocky's that way. Zach can play center and guard. Junior Sia can play both tackle and guard. That's kind of our comfort zone and our wheelhouse. So yeah, the first step is to get them comfortable with what they're doing. The worst thing you can do is play them in three different spots and they're not good at anything. So the first step is getting them in there in one spot and making sure they're comfortable there, and then trying to move them around a little bit. Just kind of see what we have, how we can piece it together, because offensive line, it never ends how it starts.
Yeah. Andrew Gentry, obviously when he came here last year, there was some concern about his foot and everything, make sure he was healthy, but went through the season pretty much unscathed. What level can he get to, in your opinion?
I mean, I think he can be an all-conference player.
Okay.
I think that should be his objective this year. And I think, again, another year in the system, year one, trying to feel it out, trying to feel me out. I expect big things out of Andrew this year.
A big thank you to TJ Woods and a big thank you to BYU Athletic Communications for the chance to catch up with him. It's one of my favorite things to do on this show and do what I do covering BYU is to catch up with people like TJ Woods. He is a salt of the earth guy. He is an offensive lineman at his core. And I also, and I never played at the collegiate level, be very clear, but I played offensive line in high school. And it's kind of a position that you take pride in it. And you take pride in the fact that you kind of are an anonymous individual in many respects. But it is a unit that, I'll reiterate something that Jeff Grimes said, it is truly the tip of the spear. There are 5 guys on that offensive line that have to work in concert with one another. And TJ is responsible to get all 5 of those guys on the same page as often as humanly possible, and hopefully always on the same page, and ultimately have those guys lead any offense, in this case, BYU's, to success. And it's cool to hear him talk about what he expects from Paki Fee now and Zach Yamauchi and Junior Sia and what he expects them to contribute to this offensive line. They targeted those guys for a reason. They brought them in via the transfer portal. They didn't say, hey, we need some guys, let's go find them. No, they targeted those 3 individuals, and they believe they can come in. And as he mentioned, it's kind of a feeling out process to see where they ultimately will fit best, but they all have the capability of contributing and potentially starting this season for BYU. Bruce Mitchell has got the center position on lockdown. I got no problem saying that. I think Kyle Safarchuk's got one of the guard spots. I think Sonny Makassini, who is sitting out spring, if I recall correctly, should he be at full health, he obviously will be in contention, and Andrew Gentry will own one of those tackle spots. So the competition is going to be fierce. And I'm not even precluding some of the young guys. Andrew Williams is a guy that I think has got future star potential written all over him. I think a guy like Ethan Thomason, should he put some of the injury concerns he's had since returning from his mission in the rearview mirror, he's a seminal talent. There's a reason why BYU wanted him so badly as a 4-star talent out of Colorado. There are just a bevy of these guys in this program that, so long as they live up to the hype, yeah, BYU's offensive line can be as good, if not better, than it was a season ago or the year before that. They've had some pretty good O-lines under TJ Woods of late, but I believe that the talent base for this O-line this year has the capability of being the best yet. And it's not that long ago, BYU's O-line was a Joe Moore Award semifinalist. And the Joe Moore Award goes, it's an offensive line award. It goes to all 5 or however many guys on an O-line. It's not an individual award. So there is some strong history in the recent past for BYU's offensive line. They put a number of guys in the NFL of late: Kingsley Sewell-Mataia, Brady Christensen, Caleb, who am I thinking of? But you get the point. They put a lot of guys at the next level, and this group of guys has that capability of, I think, surpassing all of them if they achieve what I believe, and I think what TJ Woods, by extension, believes they can achieve. And we'll ultimately see if that comes to fruition, because it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of guys getting on the same page. And a dear friend of the podcast, Connor Pay, is among the guys as an analyst who is helping coach these guys up. And it's much easier said than done to get the offensive line whipped into shape. But I have got the faith that TJ Woods, Connor, Carter Shaw, and I believe there's one other individual that Coach Woods was talking about, working with him on the O-line to get this unit in shape. I think this spring will be critical for them to kind of just get a sense for each other, get a feel for, okay, where are their best positions? A guy better at tackle or guard, and he talks about cross-training guys. So long as you have a good feel for those guys, that's good enough coming out of spring. When you get into training camp, then it's time to buckle down and say, okay, that guy's my left tackle, that guy's a left guard, on down the list. And I think the talent base is there to be elite for the BYU football program. All right. Finishing up today's show, coming up next, flip over to the basketball side of things. Now, there's a lot of angst and a lot of concern about the BYU men's basketball program. I think it's kind of the complete opposite for the BYU women's program. They are surging right now, and they are looking potentially in a game today against their arch rival Utah to maybe put themselves on the right side of the NCAA tournament bubble. What will it take for Lee Cummard and company to keep winning in Kansas City? We'll delve into that as we round out the show next. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Now, It is the 5-hour energy draft. And if you know what I'm talking about, well, guess what? You are a big fan of 5-hour energy, and it is time to draft the best. And obviously, like the draft jingles out there. My favorite flavor in the 5-hour energy draft, and there's a bevy of them out here because there's a bunch of new ones out there, but I am going to give the tip of the cap. And my first overall selection is sour apple. I am a sour, fruity flavor fan, but no matter what you're into, if you like fruity rainbow flavors, grape, tropical burst, strawberry, watermelon, simply you just want watermelon, blue raspberry, pomegranate, they have got a flavor for you. And obviously, I would say my underrated element is the watermelon flavor. I am a watermelon fan, and obviously the 5-hour energy flavor shot is absolutely incredible. So take advantage of it right now. 5-hour energy shots give you a boost with zero sugar. They have a lot of upcoming flavor innovations planned, including, like I said, confetti craze is coming out, cotton candy. They have got the birthday cake flavor. They're all available to you guys now. So find your new favorite flavor of the 5-hour energy shots available online right now at 5hourenergy.com, or you can get them on Amazon. But once again, that's 5-hour energy by going to 5hourenergy.com. Thank you once again for being here on Locked On Cougars and making it your first listen of the day. If you have not subscribed, rated, reviewed, shared the show with your family and friends, and really just kind of help continue to build the audience we've got here, well, please do so. And please continue to do what you do. And a lot of you have helped in innumerable ways over the years and the thousands of episodes we have done, and appreciate any and all of your support and your patronage here. All right. So Lee Cummard and the BYU women's basketball program won their first round game yesterday in the Big 12 tournament, really kind of staving off a hard charging Houston Cougars squad. And it was not a pretty game, at least in the first half. I went back and kind of rewatched this game, and first half was ugly, but second half, BYU came alive. Delaney Gibb obviously helping the Cougars do what they do, and she's kind of the lead figure on this team, but they had 4 players in double figures. Olivia Hamlin off the bench to lead BYU in scoring with 16 points. Delaney Gibb, aforementioned Gibb, had 15 points. Laura Rokel had 15, and then Sydney Benali had 14 points in this game. And the one thing I have appreciated about the BYU women's basketball program of late, now they've won 4 straight games now, and they're facing off against Utah later on today, and it's a big opportunity for BYU. We'll get into why momentarily, but the one thing I have enjoyed about this BYU women's team is, even though Delaney Gibb, I think, takes a lot of the headlines, she was the All Big 12 honoree herself. Olivia Hamlin was named to the All Big 12 honorable mention, as well as freshman team, obviously for her heroics as a freshman. But they're more of a true team-oriented unit than anything else. Yes, Delaney is capable of going off on any given night, particularly against Utah in Salt Lake City. She's scored 35-plus in 3 career games up at the Huntsman Center. Now, this game we played at T-Mobile Center out there in Kansas City, but the nice part is, if you can get 4 different players to contribute 60 points, man, talk about the balance that the BYU men's team does not have at this juncture. And yes, I know the injuries have really hampered BYU men's basketball and their ability to produce at a kind of a balanced level. But even before some of those injuries were imposed, it truly was kind of residing on Rob Wright, AJ DeBonsa, and Richie Saunders. But what Lee Cummard has got going on here is he's got a 21-10 record now. BYU is on the periphery of the NCAA tournament bubble, and Utah also is on that. If you go to, I think it's Charlie Cream, who is like the Joe Lunardi on the women's tournament, like in terms of bracketology, he has Utah as one of his first 4 teams out. And the matchup between BYU and Utah today could put one of the two, probably more likely at Utah if they were to win, on the right side of the bubble. But a win for BYU would be absolutely massive. Now, you're probably wondering, well, when are they playing this, Jake? It's at 12:30 p.m. Mountain Time on ESPN Plus against the University of Utah. It's the 8 versus the 9 seed. BYU, the 9 seed, obviously had to face off against the 16 seed in the first round against Houston. But this is a battle-tested squad that Lee Cummard's got going here. And should they take care of business against Utah, they will inch ever closer to having an opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament. Now, winning the Big 12 tournament would obviously come with an automatic berth, but in the next round, the third round, I guess the quarterfinals technically, well, there's the number 1 seed, TCU, awaiting the winner of this game. So that may be easier said than done to say, can you scrape past and make your way to the Big 12 tournament championship? But this BYU women's team, who's going to put anything beyond what they're beyond them right now? Because like I said, they're surging right now, and I'm here for it. I love what Lee Cummard has brought to the BYU women's basketball program. He has gotten them back to a very, very respectable level. And I didn't know this, and I'll give a shout out to my guy, Sean Walker from KSL.com. Sean pointed out, and for whatever reason, I guess I just didn't pay attention to this. Yesterday's win over Houston was BYU's first ever Big 12 tournament win since they joined the conference 3 years ago. So some significant historic type stuff happening under Lee Cummard in his first year as the BYU women's basketball coach. And I would say even if they were to drop out today against Utah, and I'm rooting for them to obviously get past Utah, they have had a remarkable season. And for his first year in charge, yeah, Lee Cummard looks like he's got this program on the up and up and looking like it's going to be something that's going to be special for a long time to come. So we'll see how it all plays out, and we'll obviously give you an update on tomorrow's show if you don't watch it live. Once again, 12:30 Mountain Time out in Kansas City, BYU versus Utah, and really could be a game that either one of these teams could get themselves on the right side of the NCAA tournament bubble with a victory. So that's going to do it for today's edition of the show. Hope you guys are all doing fantastic out there. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about BYU and Texas Tech on the men's side of things. Senior night for the BYU men's basketball program. Talk about some of the guys who will be playing their final game as a BYU Cougar in the case of Richie Saunders, sadly watching it from the sidelines, but we'll dig into that, preview that game. Also talk, as I said, about the BYU women's team. We'll also work in some BYU football as we always do on this podcast. But as always, thank you for all of your support of this podcast. You guys are the reason we're able to do what we do. So come back tomorrow and be a part of it. Search out the show on social media if you want to more updates. Locked On Cougars on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or you can search my individual pages out on Instagram or X. Jacob C. Hatch is the title there. And if you never miss an episode, a reminder for you guys to join the Locked On Cougars Everydayer Club. Join us. Get audio ad-free episodes, members only Discord access members Discord server access, Locked On merch, and a whole lot more by going to lockedoncougars.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video now, we're going to send you over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel, or if you're on audio, now go make your second listen Locked On College Basketball. And as always, come back tomorrow and be an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.